absolutely love movie monsters as long as the name isn't Harvey Weinstein. Okay, so without diving further into that controversial subject, I just want to say that a good transformation in general has the ability to redeem a whole movie, even if everything else about it is a load of shit. Today, I'm going to be covering my top 10 transformations in movies. Also, I'm switching things up a little bit today, so there will be no superhero entries in this video. Let's go.
As punishment, she transformed him into a hideous beast. All who lived there.
Normally, you'd think the prince was given a not-so-royal end of the stick here, but with that kind of privileged attitude, I say the asshole totally deserved it. Like, even the movie's narrator didn't care for that unnecessary sass. After shooing away a poor old lady from his party, the prince gets a taste of his own medicine when she bestows the iconic fairy tale curse upon him, and he slowly turns into the horrid beast. The transformation isn't explicit, and what we do get to see is through parallel shots of his eyes and shadows, but the direction and animation were both on point. The scene follows the classic storyteller's rule of less is more, and in my opinion, it works out fine because we get to imagine how the whole thing would have turned out in our own special way. I think we can all agree that Lord of the Rings trilogy will go down in history as one of the most precious franchises of all time. I could literally pick any scene from any of the movies and they would all be memorable in some way or the other. This entry covers the part where Gandalf has a face-off against Saruman, who has possessed King Theoden. So here's the thing, this is more of a mental transformation than a physical one. Gandalf tries to push Saruman out of Theoden, but the evil wizard decides to taunt him instead. Shit gets serious, so Gandalf takes off his robe to show how he means business and eventually casts the villain out of the king and reunites him with his daughter. The strength of this scene lies in the camera work that covers the emotions of all the characters involved, and the payoff is definitely satisfying. Also, I can't wait to watch The Rings of Power on Amazon Prime when it comes out. The hype for that one is real. Okay, as a guy who hasn't read the books, this scene had me questioning everything I knew about the Harry Potter franchise. Harry starts off by bitch-slapping Snape with one of his spells, and the gang confronts Sirius and Lupin after that very satisfying moment. That's when they make the big reveal the supposedly dead Peter Pettigrew is a rat, and I don't just mean in a figurative way. Of course, the kids have a hard time believing this, so we're treated to a hilarious sequence where both Sirius and Lupin try to cast a spell on Ron's rat to bring him back to his true form. The choreography is well coordinated, and Peter's sudden transition from rat to human takes everyone by surprise. This scene is obviously impactful because of the reveal, and even fans of the book enjoyed watching that dorky bugger getting exposed. See, this is why I don't keep pets. Okay, so this movie might not have been the greatest work of art, but it still gave us some pretty funny moments. Richard Gecko is having the time of his life sucking on Salma Hayek's feet. Yeah, I'm sorry if you didn't know about Quentin Tarantino's creepy foot fetish, but then things go south when he gets stabbed by Razor Charlie, and this leads to a shootout where Seth kills a bunch of dudes. However, the actual WTF moment arrives when Hayek's character starts making weird faces after seeing Richard's bleeding hand, and she transforms into a freaking vampire monster. Tarantino goes on to show us why he's much better off directing movies rather than acting in them, with some cringy dialogue delivery, and George Clooney does everyone a favour by allowing the monster to bite his bro before killing her off. That's not where it ends though. All the dead dudes transform into vampires. This includes Charlie, who goes on to attack the sex machine played by the legendary Tom Savini. Luckily for us though, that dude's got a gun in his crotch, so he survives. Overall, this was a super weird scene, but the sudden transformation was a pleasant inclusion.
No thanks, I already had a wife.
You don't need to watch the Lord of the Rings movies to know the iconic "My Precious" line delivered by one of the most memorable characters from the franchise, Gollum. The scene starts with him killing his own brother for the One Ring, and then we get to see him slowly transition from his human form to the scary-looking Gollum. Once again, the transformation isn't very explicit, but that's the whole point, isn't it? Its strength lies in its smooth subtlety as we watch him slowly waste away thanks to his greed for the ring. I know this scene is supposed to be super dark, but I was just like, this dude totally looks like Steve Buscemi. The effects are great great and stand the test of time, considering this is a pretty old movie, and I gotta give props to Andy Serkis for nailing this role so well that they got him to lead an ape rebellion after that.
Take a look at this. FIFIELD?
Listen, I'm a huge fan of the OG Alien movie, and if I'm being honest, Prometheus didn't live up to my expectations. They didn't even give us a proper xenomorph, for crying out loud. However, there are a couple of scenes that totally stuck with me. One of them was Sam Fifield's creepy-ass mutation. First of all, the dude was a total idiot to expose himself to that weird vagina-looking alien snake, so it came as no surprise that he turned into a violent monster shortly after that. He's already transformed by the time he makes it back to the ship, but the effects on his face are so horrifying that I couldn't but place it in my top 5. I mean, just look at that makeup. He looks like an evil Chewbacca without all the hair. The fight scene that follows is also pretty slick, but hey, I'm covering transformations today, so I ain't gonna mention that. So here's another example of a shitty movie that made a ton of cash only because of its CGI. And I can't really complain here, the visuals are fucking sick. Optimus Prime and the Autobots need backup to take on the Decepticons, and their only hope lies in a Jurassic Park ripoff. Optimus calls upon some ancient Transformers to help him out, but they give him the same kind of response that boomers give to Gen Z snowflakes. A battle breaks out, and suddenly we see the ancient leader transform into a freaking T-Rex robot that breathes fire. It looks so cool that I was almost willing to forgive the creators for making such a huge pile of crap. The transformation is pretty detailed, and we get to see the Dinobot in all its glory, even though it gets its ass kicked by Optimus. As a little bonus, we also get to see the rest of the Transformers turn into a Triceratops, a Pterodactyl, and what I'm assuming is a Spinosaurus. Say what you will about the rest of the movie, but this scene is a real winner.
Okay.
Don't you just love a cult classic? Underworld was a fresh take on the depiction of vampires and werewolves, and the world embraced it just like we all have to accept cringy TikTok dances today. Anyway, Michael's been kidnapped by a couple of super sus cops, and he doesn't feel so good because, you know, he's being bit by a lycan. All it takes is for a full moon to make its entry, and the dude kicks off a transformation that looks super painful. The really freaky part was when we got a zoom into his body where we could see his heart and other organs morphing into werewolf mode. It kind of made my own insides crawl for a bit. That moment was totally unexpected, and while the transformation was stopped midway, the scene is still remembered for adding a fresh take on a fading genre. And then Twilight came along and ruined everything. Here's another movie involving werewolves, vampires, and Kate Beckinsale. Our primary focus, though, is on the excessively masculine Hugh Jackman, and this time he ain't playing the Wolverine, he's Van freaking Helsing. The stakes are super high in the final battle as he faces off against the one and only Count Dracula, and as luck would have it, he's also coming off a fresh werewolf bite. The full moon is a sim for that kind of narrative, so it shows us to help Van Helsing transform into a super huge werewolf. The effects are surprisingly great for a 2004 movie, and they still hold up even in 2022. The transformation is short, but the final product is horrifying to watch, and of course, it kicks off an epic battle between a werewolf and a vampire. There's also a funny little moment where he transforms back to his human form, but that's only temporary as he springs back in action and kills the Vampire King once and for all. I might sound like a dick for saying this, but Dracula's accent was hilarious. I couldn't take that dude seriously till he transformed into a bat monster. If you're a horror cinephile, then this film has got to be up there on your list, and it's made it all the way to the top of mine. An American Werewolf in London is basically the main reason we have horror comedies today, and its iconic werewolf transformation scene is considered to be the greatest of all time. The scene kicks off with David chilling in his room, but then we see a full moon, and we all know what that means. The juxtaposition of an extremely painful transformation against an upbeat background score is what really makes this scene stand out, and the practical effects are so well done that they became the standard for horror makeup ever since. Everything about this scene is awesome, especially David Norton's spectacular performance. If you haven't seen it yet, then please do. It'll be worth your time. So those are my top 10 movie transformations. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel, and while you're at it, click the card on your top right to check out my playlist. Feel free to chat it out on my Discord or other socials too. You can find the links in the description along with my exclusive Patreon services. See you next time on the TV Regent.